We've said it a lot over the last 6 weeks, but we're going to talk about Alexander Isak and the transfer saga of this, if not any other transfer window. It's finally come to a conclusion. He's moved to Liverpool for a British transfer record of £125 million. In a moment, we will bring you every word of Newcastle United's statement on his departure. First, here he is speaking as a Liverpool player for the first time. Now, what I'll do, we'll bring you that later on. What I'll do, Charlie, is I'll read out the statement from when he signed, OK? Remember, it's a British transfer record. It says here, Newcastle United can announce the sale of Alexander Isak to Liverpool for a significant British record transfer fee. The Sweden international joined the Magpies from Real Sociedad in 2022, made 109 appearances in all competitions. A very, very short statement, that, Charlie. What did you think of it?
It wasn't going to be a long one because of how it's obviously made itself out in the media and how, I guess, he's acted throughout the transfer window. They've got to a point, short, sweet, said what he has, where he's come from. They've moved on now. I think Newcastle will be pleased that it's over, the window's shut. They've got a sign in the door also, but to get away from the Alexander Isak scenario, because the way it unfolded for the last, you can say since the last season, really, the way it's all unfolded out has not been ideal for the centre-forward or the football club.
Yeah, well, we can actually now hear from Isak after he signed that deal.
I feel amazing. It's been a long journey, you know, to get here. But I'm super happy to be a part of this team, this club, and everything it stands for. It's something I'm proud of, and I'm really looking forward to.
We're going to be joined by a Newcastle fan and a Liverpool fan in just a moment. But, Charlie, before that, because we'll definitely be asking the Newcastle fan about this. I'd imagine he's been asked so many times, he's probably got a prepared statement for it. But we saw a banner outside St James's Park. It said, Isak is a rat, Wissa is a Geordie. But they did exactly the same thing. So, in that case, is that fair?
No, it's not fair. They both acted in the same way. Got 125 million for Isak. Spend it on Jan Wissa. I think the thing is, as I see it, is every football club and every fan base would be thinking, you can't do that to my club. Don't disrespect my club. And that's obviously the way it's come about. And yes, they both could say, oh, we could have acted in different ways, but maybe that was the way they was told to act and how to force a move through. And look, they both got the wishes. Isak moved to Liverpool and Jan Wissa moved to Newcastle. So they're the winners in this.
But how worrying is that, though, that two players were so public that they wanted to leave?
Tom, I've said this.
And they've got their wish.
But I've said this for the past 2-3 weeks. This is the problem now. This is the presidents, they've said it. That's why I thought Newcastle, all the football clubs would hope in Newcastle stood firm and it wouldn't go through. Because now it sets up, especially with the Mark Gahey situation not going through, right? We'll come on to that later. But these two pushing the way they did, they disrespected the football clubs and got their moves. So now players are going to be looking at it like, well, I'll just copy them. I'll copy them. And this is not just Premier League players, by the way. This is down the football pyramid. I'll just copy them. They got their move, refused to play. And look, they've gone on to bigger and better things. And that is it. That is the way it is also. And people hear that bigger and better things. Well, Newcastle to Liverpool is an upgrade, and Brentford to Newcastle is an upgrade. So they're only pushing on in their careers. Right,
let's see what the fans think then, because we've got the perspective now. Huge story, so many subplots to it as well. And Sky Sports have partnered with Finalysis, an app where passionate fans share their opinions on their club. If you want to represent your club, by the way, we'll bring up a QR code later on, but you can also go to the Sky Sports app for more details. Let's get both sides then. Liverpool fan Peter Bolster and Newcastle United fan Ben Johnson join us now. Good morning to both of you. Ben, we will start with you, OK? It was only a 37-word statement from the club on Isak. Now, given that he did actually do very well for you, did you think that was a bit harsh?
I put on the socials last night that I thought it was a statement of few words for a man of few morals. I still stand by that. What I said last night, I stand by it this morning. I believe he's acted disgracefully this summer for a club that essentially gave him everything you look at his stats before he came, they were nothing special. We basically built him up into a world-class player. And the thing for me was that he's only halfway through a 6-year contract. Now, this situation might have been different if it was, 2 years remaining or particularly 1 year, but he's only halfway through. And there seems to be this divine right coming from himself, his agent, and essentially Liverpool fans that you have to let him go. And I disagree, and I think a lot of the fan base disagreed that we have let him go because the situation became untenable, but we didn't have to. This is something that has to be mentioned about the contracts. If players are so worried about the idea of not being able to leave, then surely at the point of negotiation, when they first sign the contract, it should be essential that they have a release clause written into that contract. If they are so desperate, thinking in the future, there might be a situation arises where I need to get out of here, then don't just sign on the dotted line and take the money at the first opportunity. Insert that clause into your contract.
Well, he has still got what he wanted without that clause. But Peter, before we get back to that, Peter, divine right of Liverpool fans to say that they should just get Isak because they want him. What do you think of that?
I completely disagree, and I also disagree with the whole contract thing, because why did he sign a 5-year contract or a 6-year contract? And I think that the contract only determines the value of the footballer. It's as simple as that. So the fact that he had 3 years left on his deal meant that Liverpool had to pay 125 million. If he had 2 years left, it would be 100 million. If it was 1 year, it'd be 50 million. That's the naivety of some of these comments that are being made, is that if you didn't have a contract for that length, you wouldn't get the value for the player. But also, if players didn't move with years left on the contract, you wouldn't have transfers. Everyone would just leave on a free transfer. It doesn't work like that. I think people don't like to see that footballers have acted in a certain way, and I get his frustration. There's no doubt about it. I've been frustrated myself with certain Liverpool players in the past, but that is football, and that's the way it works.
But also, Peter, on them contracts scenario, the clubs are protecting their asset. Like that's what they're protecting themselves, and that's how it goes. But Ben, I'll go back to it, and you've gone about the statement, and rightly so, about how little was written about the scenario. And I said, look, Newcastle will be delighted that it's over and it's all gone. Same with the fans. But Johan Wissa acted in exactly the same way. Just 24 hours later, whenever Isak put a statement out, so did he. The next time. And that was it. And what's the difference here? The way I see it, and I said earlier to Tom, was it was the disrespect, I think, from the fan side, thinking, how can a certain player disrespect my football club?
It was, Charlie. It was mainly, it's not the fact that, Alexander Isak wanted to leave. I've always said the same thing. It's the way he went about it. It was how the situation was handled. Wissa, similar situation, but possibly different circumstances. Older, possibly his last chance to play Champions League football. At his age, it's a big contract for him. And we get back to this idea of broken promises. Now, apparently, Wissa had it in writing. It's in his own words that it was written in a statement or a contract, some form of writing that he could leave this summer. If the acceptable bid came in.
Ben, just to be clear, that is not verified at all. We don't want to be reporting that as fact. That is not verified.
Okay.
We remember that Wissa has said he was broken promises. Isak said there were broken promises. So that you've got to count those as exactly the same.
But on it, so this is to like both of you really. Is respectfully, Johan Wissa's left Brentford, upgrade, gone to Newcastle, right? That's a scenario. But Alexander Isak's done exactly the same. Newcastle to Liverpool. That's where it is. There's levels to it, and unfortunately, I know a lot of clubs and a lot of fans don't really like that, but that is the scenario. Wissa's gone to Newcastle to better his career, and so's Alexander Isak. And ultimately, both teams should be happy because they've got a centre forward in, but it's just the way they've both gone about it for so long is what's had this dark cloud over it.
Yeah, well, for me personally, I just think that's Newcastle's naivety in the market. I think that they've gone for the wrong players throughout the summer, and they should have accepted the situation. Because he had 3 years left on his contract doesn't mean the Newcastle fan Ben. He's totally right. He didn't have to sell, but you're keeping a player hostage
Peter,
in a sense, aren't you, to a
every
contract.
player's for sale. It don't matter if they've got 5, 6, 1 year, 6. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely,
every
yeah.
player's
Yeah.
for sale.
Yeah, well, Jurgen Strand Larsen only signed permanently for Wolves on the 1st of July, and there were bids coming in for more than double what Wolves paid for him 2 months later. So the length on the contract isn't as important.
Yeah, but Wolves need to stay in the Premier League, don't they? So they've made the decision to make sure that they stay in the Premier League. Similar to Crystal Palace, we'll speak about Mark Gahey in a little while, but they also have got their priorities this season. Sometimes you need to take a hit on a transfer deal, and I think that's what they've done.
It goes through it, Peter. You know, when you think about it now, where it's all said and done, Liverpool in the scenario now is how do they fit them in? How do they fit them all in?
I always think that's the wrong question. It's framed as the wrong question, Charlie. And the reason why is because that only matters when you're playing the Champions League final. In between now and then, there's 60 games that you need to navigate yourself through. Liverpool also have one less experienced forward top forward than they did last season. We've only got 4. You can't count Federico Chiesa because he didn't participate enough and his fitness isn't reliable. So Liverpool got 1 less forward than they did last season. How did he fit in? That's up to them. They've got to figure out how to solve this problem for themselves, and Liverpool will be the winner. But like I say, I'm going to repeat one last time. It only matters when it's Champions League final week, and we've got a long way to get there.
Ben, in hindsight, do you wish that you'd sold Isak earlier on in the transfer window? Because there's been a lot of animosity. It's definitely caused disruption at the club, no doubt about it, through no fault of the fans. Have they been a little bit naive because they've dragged it out? They've got an extra 15 million, which is a lot of money, but in context of how much Alexander Isak is worth, it isn't that much.
Yeah, of course. I think it's dragged on far too long. I think it should have been sorted, talking June, July. We should have made the decision sooner. Obviously, we've made it at the last second. We've tried everything we could. I mean, you can see from both sides of the coin, we had to try everything we could. He's a world-class player. We did not want to lose him. We tried various tactics to try and get him to stay, and ultimately none of them worked. I think the last one we tried was a visit from the owners and PIF themselves. But at that point, we kind of knew the game was up. But I agree.
At that stage, would you have liked, if he'd signed a new contract then, with that visit from the owners, if he'd signed a new contract, what would you have thought?
He was never going to sign a new contract. Right? Let's forget that. That's completely off the table. However we like it, Liverpool have come calling. He set his stall out. He's off to Liverpool. That is where he's going. Right. So the contract, it wouldn't matter what numbers they threw at him. He was going. I think the biggest thing now is in why everyone's thinking it should have happened before it did. I think it's the start of the season Newcastle's had because it's the goals. Yes, they scored 2 against Liverpool, but the 0-0 draws, that's the reflection. All everyone takes from it is if they had a centre forward, they'd have won them games. Peter, you're not silly. We watched the Monday night game. If Newcastle had the centre forward, they won the game because they were brilliant against Liverpool at home at St James's Park.
They nearly did.
Yeah, 100%. I think as well.
Charlie, sorry.
No, I think what's sad for Newcastle fans is it's been a great year. They've beaten us in the cup final, and they've had this lovely feel-good moments, and they're qualified for the Champions League again. So, for me, looking at Newcastle as an outsider, I just think it's quite sad that it's soured all of those good feelings. So, hopefully, now that Isak has moved on, they can have that back.
Yeah, Peter,
I just wanted to say one thing. I think we definitely would have maybe 7 to 9 points seriously from these first 3 games if we'd had a centre forward on the pitch. I thought the Leeds performance wasn't great, but the other 2 performances easily could have won both if there was a decent centre forward on the pitch. So I agree. Getting back to what Charlie said, it should have been sorted much sooner. Unfortunately, it wasn't, but now it is.
Peter, Mark Gahey, Charlie's saying that these 2 players got their move by acting the way they did. Mark Gahey didn't act like that, and he didn't get his move. Do you wish he had?
No, I don't wish any player to ever act like that, but only he can really answer that question, and maybe it's in 10, 15 years' time when he looks back on his career. So Isak and Isak have got to look back and in hindsight. When you make a decision in life, it needs to make sense in hindsight. And right now, he's done the right thing for Crystal Palace, and fair play to him. He's a good lad. But if he misses out now on a brilliant season for Liverpool and potentially not even sign for Liverpool and make sign for someone else next season, then that's when he's got to think, well, what should I have done?
Because, Pete, when you go on about the two strikers that have obviously moved, like they think about it, how they act. No, they've bettered their career. That's where it's at, right? Which is, like I said, they've moved and they've bettered their career. Mark Gay's situation, he acted the way he did professionally. We see on Sunday the way he played and the way he has conducted himself the whole way through. Been brilliant, right? Nobody can say anything about him. But he hasn't got his move that obviously he wanted. He'd be so disappointed. My bit is, whatever happens now for the next 6 months, obviously there's no transfer talk, it opens the pool for more clubs. But what happens if it don't come? What happens if Liverpool don't come? Maybe this is the only chance he gets to sign for Liverpool.
Hey, Ben, what if he ends up at Newcastle next summer instead, for free?
Well, we've tried before, so who's to say we won't try again next summer? Maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, could happen. Ben, just on your signings in general, how much has the Isak situation overshadowed what actually, if you break it down, has, other than that, been a good transfer window?
Yeah, I mean, it has overshadowed. I think you can kind of separate the two. We've had mixed emotions. It's been a roller coaster. We've had the ability to kind of praise the signings we have made. They've been great. Really upgraded the depth of the squad. Maybe not so much the starting 11. But I think that was the idea this summer, to upgrade the kind of underbelly of the squad, firm up the actual players that we have on the bench, make them better, improve that side of things. But yeah, it's been a distraction. You feel like you're celebrating a brilliant signing, one day, and then the next day there's more Alexander Isak quotes or things like that going on in the media, and it's been a real roller coaster. I think a lot of fans have kind of just been up and down this summer, and it's been difficult, but I don't think it's overshadowed it to the point where we can't be thankful and celebrate what a good job the owners have done. I think there was a few moments in June and July where we thought, is this actually going to happen? Are we actually going to make some signings? And we kind of got the ball rolling, and yeah, the 6 lads we've brought in, I think we've bought them for great prices, and I think the thing what I found with all of them is that they're all very good players now, but they all have room for improvement. And that's what we like to do at Newcastle. It's what Eddie Howe specialises in, taking a good player and making them a great player and hopefully a world-class player.
Peter, just a final one now. Jurgen Klopp received a lot of praise when he said that Liverpool do things a little bit differently, as in they don't splash the cash. Well, this summer, you certainly are. £446 million this summer. Are you happy with this new strategy?
I don't think it's a new strategy. It's very similar to when we signed Alisson Becker and Virgil van Dijk. Liverpool have got one of the best data-driven transfer models in the whole entire footballing world. Liverpool signed the right player. Alexander Isak is the best number 9 we could have possibly got, because we couldn't have signed Haaland, we couldn't have signed Mbappe. Florian Wirtz is the best number 10 that you can sign, because you can't sign Lamine Yamal. Frimpong's the best right back in the world that Liverpool could have signed. So Liverpool have signed the right player, not the most. It's not about the money; it's about signing the right player. So I think it's exactly the same. I just think people are forgetting about transfer fees are inflated, and the fact that Liverpool have recouped 230 million or something like that. So it's like, no, it's very much the same.
Yeah, Ben, your face was a picture there when he said Frimpong was the best right back you could buy. I could tell straight in your mind you were thinking of Tino Livramento. Peter, Ben, thanks very much, and I'm sure you're both happy that the transfer window is now finally over.